Welcome to Mimir, the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who want to launch and grow a successful business from day one. I'm your host, Maddie Kelly, and each week I sit down with founders who have been there, done that. We dive into the mindset, strategies, and practical tools you need to turn your vision into a reality. So let's get to work. Hey guys, welcome back to Mimir. Today, I want to talk about what does it really take to build a business that flips an entire industry on its head and survive the emotional roller coaster that comes with it. So I'm sitting down with Jennifer Tsay, the co-founder of Shoott, a platform that is radically changing how photographers and eventually all kinds of artists can build sustainable careers. But Jennifer's path is anything but traditional. She went from corporate financing to acting to producing a documentary to being a co-founder. But I think her journey is a masterclass in how diverse experiences can shape sharper entrepreneurs. So she and I are diving into not just how Shoott cracked a problem that had stumped others, but also the hidden emotional battles that founders face. Jennifer is sharing how she learned to process the negativity online instead of letting it derail her. Her tips really surprised me, and I think she has a fresh perspective in this space that all founders need to hear. You guys are also going to learn the importance of not being married to theory when you're building something new, why self-awareness as a founder is most important and least talked about skill, how to test ideas fast, course correct without ego, and stay open to unexpected opportunities along the way. So if you're actively building or trying to find your way, you're going to get so much out of this conversation. Listen in, and I guarantee you'll feel seen, energized, and a little bit braver afterwards. So please join me in welcoming Jennifer to the podcast. Let's just start from the beginning. Let's give a brief introduction into how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started my career doing investment banking. So, I did something very corporate, of really high stress. I did that. I got really bored and I was like, oh, and I went on to do a few more corporate jobs at American Express. I did strategic finance and then I did some nonprofit work. And I was like, I want to try something that's totally different. So I quit. I started taking acting classes, dance classes. I produced a screenplay, a documentary. Sorry, I wrote a screenplay. I produced a documentary. And then I did like every kind of like artist job under the sun. I like whitened teeth. I nannied. I babysat. I worked at the front desk of a private equity company. I stocked their fridge. I really did everything. Just to try to be like, what is it that I like?
Yeah.
What kind of life do I want to live? And I was an actor for quite some time. And then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to have a better day job to
Yeah.
supplement my acting. And I was like, oh, I know like waiting tables is not quite right for me the way that a lot of my friends were doing. So I was like, well, what if I use like corporate experience? And
Mm-hmm.
so I had worked for a guy who's a serial entrepreneur, and I reached out to him again, like 10 years after I first worked for him. And I was like, hey, do you know of any startups that are hiring? Because I think that's the best environment for me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, this is so weird. Because he had moved to Paris. He was like, I'm actually in New York right now. And I'm trying to find a team to do a new startup with. And he was like, I totally forgot that like you were here. So we met up. And then within 2 days, we had the idea born out of like my artist background, which is being an artist. There's so many people that are living paycheck to paycheck. Can we
Mm-hmm.
develop a business model that helps artists stay artists? Is there some sort of weird fusion between business and art? And couldn't figure it out for acting, but we're like, you know what? We could probably do it for photographers. So that's how the idea of Shoot got born. I never had an entrepreneurial background, but there was like nobody else to do it. So I was like, I guess I'm gonna just like take over a lot of the operations. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where we are today. It was very accidental.
I have so many questions because
Yeah.
first of all, I love that you did just a complete 180 and you were like, I did this. And then you're exercising this whole other half of your brain. But what was the documentary you produced? I'm just so curious, what have you been in an acting role? That's so fun.
Yeah. So the documentary that I helped produce, was on Korea's divided families. So there were families that were divided on the North and South, and they were trying to reunite. And yeah, so that was really cool. I'm not Korean, but my friends were. So I
Yeah.
stepped into this thing, and I learned about how many people were still really torn up about that and hadn't seen or contacted people for like decades.
Oh my
And a
Lord.
lot of the and it was very time sensitive because a lot of those people are dying now. So that was
Mm,
why we produced that. And it was a lot of really fun learnings from that, and really, really rewarding. So that was the documentary. And then on the
yeah.
acting side, I've had small parts. I've done a lot of indie films, and then
Yeah.
also a lot of New York like indie theater. But then like the things that you would recognize is like I did something on The Blacklist. I had a role on the
What?
other two. Yeah, Blue Bloods,
Oh my
like little
gosh.
things here and there. So, but I'm mostly a theater girl.
Well, I'm sure that I believe personally that having a really wide array of experiences prepares you for entrepreneurialism better than honestly, if you go to school for it sometimes. I mean, I don't know about if that's true. Like I have an MBA, so it's a little bit different, but I truly believe that the majority of what really helps you in an entrepreneurial experience is like a really diverse background and just doing a whole bunch of other things because it really picks up that spirit of just figuring shit out because that's the majority of what the entrepreneurial experience is. And so I'm wondering, your diverse background, how do you think that that helped you build Shoot? And do you think that all of this helped you to see that experience differently?
Yes. So the thing that I enjoyed about what I had done in terms of trying to explore everything, it's like I got to touch a lot of different industries, and then I had to see like different goals and deliverables depending on the different industries.
Mhm.
And that really helps hone in you like how do you understand context in every situation? And then how do you develop the best process to enhance whatever is already there? So, being able so like going to school for things is important. I always think it is, but I feel like that helps you develop a framework, but there's
Yes.
nothing that really helps you understand what something is tactilely in real life,
Yeah.
what it is like, and then how you interact with it. Because again, we're all really different people, and how we interface with things and how we understand it is so super important to do in person. So, the thing that I always like to do in all these different environments is I think about why are things built or run a certain way, whether
Mm.
it's like the process that I had for approving a deal in investment banking, or why do the credit memos look like this? Or if I'm in a show, why is the order of operations that we do things this way or that way, right? Like, you start with like scene work, you start with like reading the script, and you do scene work, and you do all of that stuff. When you do enough things, you're like, I know why. If you understand why things are the way they are, you can kind of work that into how you work, you're better at everything that you do.
Yeah.
So when you have that, it's easier to like have all these different paradigms jostling around in your head. And then when you get to all these new contexts and new challenges, you have this like intense and like immense library to pull from to really
Mhm.
backwards engineer how to figure out how to do something. It's a long-winded answer, but like that's how I kind of see it all come together for me.
No, that makes sense. I think entrepreneurs are a different type of mind. Like the way that we think is just very different. And I think it's because of what you just said, which is we see things from a different perspective. Like anytime something has been done a certain way, our first instinct is to question why. Like I think everybody can relate to that. Like for me, it's always and this is why such amazing ideas come out of stagnant industries is because somebody took a look at this problem and said just because we've been doing it this way for x amount of years doesn't mean that that's the way we should continue to do them, especially with the way that technology is evolving and just the way that our brains think, because it's just I I feel like inherently I'm just there has to be a better way. Like if it's not
Yes.
vibing, there has to be a better way. Like we're all competent human beings, like we can figure this out. And I think that's really the root of it. And I think that's why I'm so intrigued by what you're building because you're flipping the traditional model on its head and, for a better experience across the board, but like what problem were you really trying to solve, and like how did you know that this model might actually work and then also have the potential to scale beyond that?
Yeah. So what we were trying to solve at the time was when you think about the artist's life, it's incredibly gig to gig. And it's like I'm lucky if I
Mhm.
get like 2 gigs a week. And if I do, like I have to drive all the way here to drive back. It's like very inefficient. You have to cobble enough work together to create a living. It's just, and then you spend most of your time trying to find a job and not doing what you actually love. So those
Yes.
problems, it's like, we love the arts. Like everyone's life is richer because of them. How do we help more artists stay artists? That was the original
Hmm.
impetus for all of it. And then when we were like, okay, well, what kind of business model can we create? We were thinking, what if we what if we, instead of having a gig here, a gig there, we could aggregate demand all in one location? So the photographer is in one place. We put like a schedule up and then we have back to back sessions. So the clients actually rotate to them. So you're posted somewhere.
Mm.
And so then you can get scale while simplifying life for the photographer. And then we were like, well, what if we take care of marketing for them? And then it became well, we're essentially then taking care of marketing, booking, scheduling.
Yeah.
Um, then it became the sales process. We took care of customer service. So then we were like, what if we do everything so that they can do more of what they love, which is photography, and that's it.
Mhm.
And so that was what was born out of that.
I mean, it makes so much sense. Like, it's one of those things where you look back and you're like, this seems so obvious. Like, why has nobody done this before? Like, why do you, I mean, honestly, like, why do you think nobody had done this before? Like, the idea is perfect. And I'm sure that there were like inherent challenges with making this work.
Yeah, I think it's very manual because it
Mm.
takes a lot of it, like you we just the people that are on my team that make this a successful business. It's like we have an incredibly rich understanding of detailed work. So it's like we have to have a library of locations. We have to know all the permits for it. We have to be
Mm.
able to know all the shooting spots. We have to know like where the meeting point is. It's a lot of, and we have to maintain that over time. So there's just like so many pieces that go into it. And you kind of have to nerd out about all of that stuff and be vigilant about being really on top of all of the detail work. So I would say like that's what makes it not the most sexy to start. Like we
Yeah.
don't really sit there and have a fear of like, oh, somebody else is going to replicate it. It's really hard to do. It's hard to
Yeah.
do well. So, I mean, but I was like, the people on our team are not afraid of details work and doing a ton of it. So like it makes a lot of sense. And then, we're able to, once we build up that library, it's great. But it's like, there's so many things that we do to make it work the way it works. So I
Yeah.
really think, because there are other platforms that exist, where people can book a photographer at a time, but that doesn't solve that problem. It
Yes.
helps them find gigs, but it doesn't make things easy for them and the client, which then brings in volume for the photographer, which
Hmm.
benefits like that. That circular relationship hadn't been bridged by anyone else.
Yeah, like the way that you thought about it hadn't previously been thought of by others, which is why you're able to solve the problem like at the root.
Mhm.
And this is what I love about building your own business is that then you can, because you're deeply aware of the actual problem that you're trying to solve and the difficulty with which it hasn't been done up to this point, you're like, I can now build a team of people who like to think this way and like to solve
Yes.
problems this way. So then like it's a continuously amazing experience for everybody that has allowed you to scale, to what was like 60 plus cities now across the
Yeah.
US.
Across the US. Yes.
Insane. Do you guys have plans to expand beyond that as well? I'm sure.
So anytime we can add a city in the US, we're doing that. And I think we are now at the precipice where I'm like, what does it mean and what does it take to scale to another country? So I think
Yeah.
we started that process a little bit. There's a lot of considerations for like having a website in different languages, possibly having like dealing with taxes, dealing with another set of lawyers. Like there's a whole set of very logistics again to start in a new country. So it's determining whether or not we want to kind of go down that there or
Yeah.
like consider franchising, something like that. So that's kind of what's next for us in terms of like scale.
That's such a fun problem to solve. I think about that a lot. Like in my 9 to 5, we are in like a scale phase. And so the question that we're always constantly asking is whether or not the resources that we have now, like where best to drive those. So like, do we want to take on a huge new client and then have to understand that we have to like dedicate the resources necessary to that? Or should we like take a more like scrappy approach and allow for like scale in a different direction, while like recognizing that cost benefit analysis? And like, these are questions that as founders, co-founders, we all have to think about. Like, and I think it can be intimidating to be like, how do I know what I'm making the right choice for? But I think it's just like, I think it comes back to understanding the overarching direction that you're trying to go.
Yeah, and I think, to speak to that point, it's super important to develop really strong self-awareness of
Okay.
what your skills are
Mhm.
and what your team skills are, and like what do you over time like your judgment calls, which ones tend to be accurate and which ones tend to be slightly faulty. And knowing
Mm,
kind of who's better at what, then you can figure out like, okay, this is what we're going to try. And on at least what we do, we always MVP something, like minimum
yeah,
viable product. Like we never throw all our eggs in one basket. We're like, can it work on a small scale? If it does, we keep feeding it, and if it doesn't, we're like, no. So we never like burn too many resources doing something and having regret. I don't think we've ever felt that way.
that's a really awesome way to put it. To be self-aware enough to understand where you've had ideas that were like a sleigh, and then others where you're like, we like shouldn't probably do that again. Do you have any like specific examples of that for you, like in particular, where that happened, or where you like looked back and been like,
I,
especially?
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No, no. Yeah, so, no, this was early on. There was an assumption because we started in 2018. There was this
Mhm.
assumption that our core business was gonna be influencers because it was the era that Instagram was really growing and everyone was looking more aesthetic in photos. So, we were kind of, like, looking to, like, influencers and also people who wanted photos for vacation, so, like, tourism. And we weren't getting a lot of traction, but it was like a technical thing that some people kept holding on to their brain. Well, it should work. It should work. It's like, and what I've come to realize is when people are very married to theory, I don't love that. So we were like, let's go where the people are. And I was like, and so that's what bridged us into realizing that our core demographic was actually moms of young kids. Um,
Huh.
once we realize that those are the people, so when you think about it, when people have children, of course they want photos of them. And children look very different even within a few months. And so, of course, people want to document all of this. And at least once a year, they'll go get like a photo shoot for Christmas, for holiday cards, right?
Mhm.
So then and then once moms found out about this, so the traditional photo shoot is like at least $300-400, sometimes $500, sometimes multiple hours. It's this really cumbersome thing. People are booked out for the holidays by like July or August. It's this really crazy cost prohibitive thing. And meanwhile we're like, no, I think we can provide something where there's availability every weekend, even for like procrastinating moms where there's many of them where you just like, didn't get around to it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we have something for you. And that's once we realized and kind of focused on that and gave up this theoretical assumption that some people on the team had that like that, well, this must work. It doesn't. Go where it works. And that's
Yes.
what really made us scale very fast.
Yeah, I think something that I would like love for you to double click into a little bit is like when you're married to theory. I think that's a really interesting way to think about it, because in my mind, entrepreneurialism, you're always testing a theory, because like it's never going to be validated until it's been validated. And so you kind of have to like follow an idea. But to your point, to be married to a theory is like, if you're, bear with me because this is a really weird correlation, but like when you're doing a murder investigation,
Uh-huh.
if the cops are like too like narrowly
Yes.
focused into one theory, that like, let's say like the boyfriend did it, then they focus all the resources into that, which, like they're then excluding all these other options, which, never leads to like a good thorough investigation.
That's absolutely right. Yeah,
Really?
you burn so much. And I think like one of the things that I love about being an entrepreneur is like being really open to every possibility and being able to kind of consider each of them really fast to be like which ones are the most viable. Like which
Yeah.
one's out of here. Like you have to be able to scan something and know pretty quickly. If the times where people get bogged down is when it's almost like you start to spiral because you can't like get out of this loop of like, I don't know about this, what about that, what about that, what about, and then you stay in inertia. And the worst thing you can do is just stay in your head, try something, try a test, A B test it, let it go, and then
Yep.
just move on. It's almost like this like meditative practice of trying different things and not being married to anything and seeing what works and going to there.
I'm super excited by the way that you're talking about all this because I can clearly see that you developed like a serious sense of self-awareness. And I I'm sure that that's like there's no one perfect answer to this question. Like I'm sure it's a combination of experience and maturity and just like reps. But if I pull that out a little bit and I just sort of think about like what is a belief that you held at the beginning of your journey that turned out to be completely wrong? And what did you learn from that experience?
Yes. So in the beginning, and I'm still not 100% here, but I know what the correct thing is now. The belief was that trolls are bad. So trolls are not great. Trolls are really like in the beginning, it was a lot of emotional terrorism from trolls that were wanting to like they would give death threats to us, like they would
What?
just be really vicious about
For
how we
what?
were just because we were destroying the photography industry, we were destroying art. We were taking yeah, so there's a lot of distrust of
Interesting.
platforms. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of like, oh, you guys take advantage of the little person. You guys
Mm,
are just like taking as much profitability for yourself. You guys
mm,
don't care about them. You're just using them. Like they're actually this,
mm.
like there was a lot of that kind of stuff. And it was never ending in the beginning. And we did. We got death threats. We got people coming on just like spewing hate and just trying to do all. And it was really hard. And the thing is, like, if you've never been on the receiving end of it, like people like, oh, sticks and stones, whatever. I was like, it's very hard to be on
Mm.
the receiving end of hate. It just is. It's just like until you experience it, you can say that it's just nothing. But
Yeah.
it's like, apparently, if you talk badly to grass, it also doesn't grow right. Like, you
Yes,
know what I mean?
it's a real thing. Like
Yes.
it is. I'm really glad that you brought this up because this is not something that I've talked about yet on the podcast, and I think it's very important that we can, as much as we'd like to say that it doesn't affect us, or that we can understand from a logical perspective that this really has nothing to do with us. Like
Mhm.
you're disrupting an industry and that will cause uprising or like some
Yes.
feelings no matter what. It will
Yes.
always happen in any industry that you're disrupting. The like status quo will always sort of riot against that because as human beings, our brains think about change as a threat
But
because like
mhm.
historically, our DNA has evolved for survival of the fittest and typically like the less risk adverse or the more risk adverse you were, like the higher likelihood you had to survive. So like all of this comes out of like a survival instinct. But it's like, you can see that and understand that, but to be on the receiving end of any sort of negative energy, whether that's regarding your business or like some random guy on the street, like as you're driving down, in your car is like flipping you off, it's still like you're receiving that energy. And it's like, no matter what, you still feel it. And
Yes.
there's not I don't know the answer to this question either because
Mm.
as much as I like to try to rationalize and you're aware of your position and you're aware of the other people's positions, like I don't know if like it's just time and that like you have to sort of just let your body process the emotions as it would, but it's really hard.
Yeah, so I was dealing with this because I was starting to make videos about our business, and then I went on TikTok, and people were starting to write like really hateful things and being like, "There's one really nasty review of you guys on
Hard.
Reddit." And what I couldn't say is I know who the photographer is who wrote that, and they're still on our team. If they hated us so much, but I can't go and say like, it's things like that, right? And so it was really demoralizing, especially when if you're ever trying really hard to do something and then people are attacking you that you
Especially for
don't
the right
care.
reason.
Yeah. And if they're saying that you don't care, it really fries your brain a little bit. You have
Yeah.
to really sit with that. And I was like, I'm not a repressor. I don't believe in that. Not that I'm sorry. It's not that I don't believe it. It's not my habit. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't believe in it either, but it's their habit, so they can't help it. I can help it. So like I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, let this really affect me, and let's see where I come out on the other side. With like, I'll give myself like I'm like, I give myself a few days. I didn't cap it at an exact time. And I let myself, like, I was working, I was crying. I was like, this is so depressing. I was like lying there really depressed. And then finally my brain got to a place because I can like was letting it process. And then it was like, what am I doing? Everything that they're accusing me of is just wrong.
Yeah, it's just
So
simply
why
not.
am I so afraid of it? And then, then coming out on the other side, I was like, any attention, this is so hard. Any attention is good attention in a business. At least you want to make sure you're not on the end of on a PR crisis. It's different, but a lot of things can be spun positively. It's an opportunity. So how do I see them as opportunities? You can
Mm,
respond more like, let's talk to these people. Let's either figure out what we're not explaining enough in the marketplace where we can really build that up. What if we did something,
yeah.
we can fix it. We can talk to that. Like sometimes there's other brands who do something wrong and then they just make fun of it. And having a sense of humor as a brand, showing that you're human and you're willing to accept your L's, like
Yeah.
people like that. It means that you have a growth mindset. And that means inherently that you're a safer type of person or entity, right? Versus being like, that didn't happen. What are you like, what are you talking about? Like, and being just kind of like really hard against those things. It's maintaining that dialogue. And, sometimes we haven't quite done this yet, but we've heard, there's other people who love trolls. They love them so much. They will like fight with them in their comments just to get more engagement. Like it's stuff like that. They will just like start fights and
Yeah.
say really controversial just because it gets engagement. And the
Yeah.
more you get engagement, people learn about you, people jump into the thing, you learn about how people think and feel. It's super invaluable. But it's been a long journey. Like, it's been almost 7 years, man, where I'm not, just now coming to the other side to be like, no, it's okay. Right. I did like learn how to self-soothe and talk to myself like through the whole process and be like, no, like there's nothing to be ashamed of. We don't have to hide. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think like you're right. There's a couple ways that you can go about handling that. And in my personal opinion, like I don't think I would ever want to directly engage with a troll like just purely for engagement. Like that's just not how I personally would ever
Yeah,
do
me
things,
personally, no, but
right? Like that's your choice, okay? But that's just not how I would handle things. But I think what I really liked about what you said is that you said instead of like okay, yep. Period, first of all, it's just not true, right? Like that is not your intention. So okay, great. From like an emotional perspective, like you don't have to engage in that way. You don't have to like defend yourself. But what you can do is use it and say, like, oh, that means that people aren't understanding what we're
Mhm.
doing. So this is
Yes.
more just highlighting where we are having a gap in marketing. It's
Yeah.
just like purely we're just not positioning ourselves in the way that we want to be positioned. And like that's actually great because now we're aware of this issue that we're having and we can solve it directly. And so like to talk to them and be like, thank you for being so vocal. It's been very helpful, but like, this is our mission. This is really what we're trying to do. And like, we would love to talk to you more about like how we can better explain ourselves. So then, you know, people don't feel like we're doing the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So it's more of like a thank you for the information and like for making us aware of this. Like, how can we do better? Because it's not like you did anything wrong. It was just more like the positioning was off, which is totally fine. And like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's that's totally right. And then we were like, we do things like we invite them to join our team. We're like, hey, if you really hate it, join the team. And then you can tell us what we need to do better and you can see that we're capable of listening and that we care.
yeah,
And a
that's
lot
so
of people, and people get like less angry, right? And they're like, oh well, you know what? Like, I
never
don't
mind.
know. Like yeah, never mind. Or like they're like, it just sounds too good to be true. And I'm like, listen, in a world where there's so many scams, there's so many. I
Yeah.
get where the vitriol comes from,
Yeah.
but it's like, like maybe leave room that there are people trying to do good and trying to build good things and that there could be opportunities. I know it's hard to trust people, but like, engage with people productively versus destructively. Like, why are you spending all your energy trying to tears? What if I was like, what if you're right that we could do better? But what if you're just
You're
like
right.
destroying people that are actually trying and are capable of doing that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to work alongside them just because they aren't have the right intention, right? And then like the sky's the limit if you guys can kind of team up, right? Because you can see the
Yeah.
opportunity and help them see the opportunity. So I think once we're able to kind of talk around that, people are kind of they're like it kind of breaks through that rage, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe bye.
No, that is so freaking cool. I love
I
that
don't
you.
recommend this for everybody. I like okay, I will say there are some people who are just angry and just like want to just let, do you know what I'm saying? I'm not here
Yeah.
to psychoanalyze every single person.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not your
right? Like, but you can you can try a little bit and see, and then use it, and then some people you may just have to block. But like, and you have to you still have to protect your peace, but you
Yeah.
can also leave space for opportunity. But definitely like protect your peace too. I want to make sure that that's really clear. I don't want someone to, be emotionally wrecked by trying our methodology and being like, I can't handle this.
I think there's a difference here. Like,
Yes. Yes.
as a person in a business, you're not responsible for managing people's responses to
Yeah.
your business. And with that, like, there's a way, like, for me, it's very obvious. Like, you operate with compassion and kindness first, and you do what you need to do to, like, as a person, be in your best energy and your best self. And like,
Yeah.
and from a business perspective, you got to do what you got to do to like take your business to the next perspective while operating from a place of kindness and compassion. However, you are not responsible for how people respond to those actions. Like, if somebody
Yeah.
feels like what you're doing isn't right or it's not what they want you to do, it's not your place to manage that. Like, that's on them. The
Yes.
only thing you can do is try your best and be considerate and kind of others, like, as much as you possibly can. But to your point, like, there are some times when you just have to block because, like,
Yeah.
it's not productive.
No. And some people are just having a bad day.
Yeah.
And it's not useful to sit there and try to like win everybody over, right? So I give space, people can come as they are, but then they just have to accept the consequences of their words. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you had to have like a lot of conversations with your team about this and like, do your own self-awareness stuff like on the side. Like, I don't know what that looks like for you, but like I love to use ChatGPT so much for this kind of stuff. Like, I'm always
Yeah.
explaining situations and then like being like, how do I handle this? Like, here's how I'm feeling. I don't know how to respond, but like this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And it always
Mhm.
comes up with such helpful responses and like validating your feelings while also, sort of pushing you to make the hard choices every now and again. And like, as a person and a business owner, it's been such like a helpful tool for
Yeah.
me personally.
No, certain things, which is so funny that you say that. There's certain things where if like there's like a skills gap or like they're like, I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? I'm like, ask ChatGPT. They're gonna
Yeah.
have a better, like, I was like, oh my God, I'm outsourcing certain areas of like where normally I'd have to be like, okay, let's come up with a game plan for how you're gonna develop here. I'm like, no, I'm not an expert here, but I know somebody who can scan more other experts to give you a better, and synthesize that way better. Ask ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So, that's, sometimes I have my husband look on chat. I'm like, listen, if you don't know what to do and ask ChatGPT, don't ask me.
No,
And
seriously.
chat's actually super helpful. And
I
he's the
appreciate
same
it
way.
so much.
Yeah. And he doesn't, and people don't take it as personally.
Yeah.
Like if a person, right, if somebody else is telling you what to do, you're like, how do you know that? You know what, I'm like, but if
Yes.
ChatGPT tells you, you can't blame me.
It's an unbiased third party,
It
which
is.
I think is super helpful.
I
Like,
know.
it helps. Like, there's so much, I think generally like an interesting theme for this like topic of conversation that we're having is there's a lot of emotions that go into running a business. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And whether that's like internally you're struggling with how do you solve a problem or like how do you manage a team or how do you deal with comments from other people like about your business, like there's just a lot of emotion that goes into this. And
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I think is so amazing about female entrepreneurs is I think that we have a better way of dealing with those emotions and handling
Yeah.
them, which I think is like a very unique skill for female entrepreneurs in particular that like I think generally we're just better suited to dealing with that.
I think that, listen, this is that I would love more experts to chime in on this that actually
Yeah.
like study this. But it just in my experience, women multitask better than men. And when you're
Yes.
doing entrepreneurship, it's like your brain has to be able to juggle 20 things at once. So like, I think about it and I'm like, if you're, I don't have kids, but like when I look at people that are moms, I'm like, if you have to juggle 20 things, which you do to keep your children alive, and you remember their birthday, you remember what snack to pack them, you remember like all of these, their appointments, all of this stuff. If you can do that, you can run a business. You're already running a business.
Yeah.
And we just naturally, I don't know whether it's because we're trained from the time we're little to do that. I don't know. I don't know
I
why,
think
but I
it's
just know
probably
that's what I
because
see. Yeah.
I think to your point, like it's because we have the ability to have children, and to have children, you have to multitask. Like you
Yeah.
have
Or
to
they
keep
die. Yes.
literally like you have to keep yourself alive, and then you also have to make sure that you are raising that child and
Yes.
remembering all the things that come into that, while also like trying to make them the best versions of themselves, while trying to make you continually the best version of yourself. So like to have those two things exist simultaneously requires a different wiring of our brains to be able to multitask. I am 100% positive that there is research out there that confirms that
Oh,
women are
sure.
simply like better multitaskers than men. Like I see reels on Instagram all the time being like proving that my husband can't multitask, and it's hilarious.
No, my favorite, I don't know if you saw the one where like they're like cut a circle out of this paper while explaining to me how to like do something they knew how to explain how to do. Like, I don't know, changing
Yes.
oil out of their car. And they like they couldn't do it at the same time. And I'm like, my husband's like that too. Like he's so good at hyper focus and doing one like kind of one thing in one process. And I see that on my team too. And again, I want to know whether it's environmental slash just like men are socialized to be like this, or whether there's an evolutionary thing for it. But I see it constantly. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I do see a difference. That is generally true.
Yeah.
In that
If
way,
anybody's
right?
listening to this that has the answers to these questions, like please let us know, because
Yes, please.
we are sitting here like truly fascinated by this whole
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. And to your point that you said before, like I do think also, and this is I think is socialized, is that women are just given more tools from the time we're young to deal with our emotions. It's more
Mm,
accepted. It's less. I feel like men are just usually taught more just to repress or to minimize,
mm,
just to survive through something. Where women I feel like are taught all these different things, and it's okay to feel these feelings, so it's easier to to kind of balance mental health. But again, that's individual. But I do find, that there's that kind of interplay going on as well.
yeah. Well, this has been a truly fascinating conversation, and I love where this went. Was not expecting it, but it was so much fun. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here and lending your time and your expertise and your energy to share your story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. It was such a pleasure.
And that is a wrap on today's episode. If you guys got even one good idea, smash that 5-star button. You can find all the links to connect with Jennifer in the show notes. And if you want more founder wisdom, community, and behind the scenes, come hang out at mamir.ink. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys next week.